welcome back for part 2 of the Three Wonders review. Today we're going to be taking a look at Chariot Quest Through the Sky. This game is a side-scrolling flying shooter as opposed to the previous game, Midnight Wanderers, which was a, basically your Metal Slug type Spin Master, walking on the ground, jumping, and shooting enemies type shooter. And as you can see, there's all kinds of enemies that are flying at you. Same kind of treasure chests as you saw in Midnight Wanderers. And back when these games were released back in 1991, they saw no console release at all. The only console releases we saw were in the various Capcom's Classic Collections. In 2006, you saw your Capcom's Classic Collection remixed on the PlayStation Portable, which contained Three Wonders. Then in 2006 as well, both the Xbox and the PlayStation 2 got Capcom Classics Collection Volume 2, which contained Three Wonders. So, those were the only actual arcade ports of this game. You never actually got any, home ports back in the day when these games were still new. But a lot of these games just wouldn't really have worked too well on their representative consoles, and it could possibly be that Capcom didn't think this one would work too well for the American audience to release it on a wide console release. And just like with any shooter, side-scrolling shooter, you'll notice that there's various power-ups I get here. There's that weird tail thing, and of course there was that armor thing that I had for a little while before I got hit. And here's the first sub-boss of the game. I'm guessing that Baz Vital means his name is Baz, and I just got owned there. And for some reason now we're going really, really fast when we're fighting this boss. Insert a couple more virtual quarters and keep going. I have to admit that, of course, these games aren't really my best genre. I'm okay at some of them, but usually I'm not too good because there's just too much stuff flying at me, but some of them can be pretty cool. Just like in the other previous game, this is a very colorful, very animated, cartoony type game. It's not one of your more crazy, over-the-top games where you're flying a ship and there's all these tanks shooting at you. This one's a little bit more whimsical, and it feels a little bit more of the fantasy genre than your more serious games. Because now we're actually fighting a big cloud, who we have to shoot his nose before he spits these weird little blue things at us. So you gotta watch out for him, because it wouldn't be too good if you had those blue things hit you. Shoot, bomb, and we got all our power-ups back. And as you always notice, you're always going to see your score ticking up as you're fighting these enemies. And he has his own little cloud minions that fly all around him. I honestly don't understand that whole tail thing. I think possibly it could be if you're flying and then you hit one of the enemies, you could actually hit them with the tail. The whole idea of this Three Wonders compilation in an arcade kind of reminds me of the Neo Geo MVS, where you could have up to 4 games in one system. But of course, as opposed to Neo Geo Multi-Video System, or MVS, you have 3 games on one PCB on this one, instead of having 3 individual cartridges like you would on the 4 individual cartridges like you would on the Neo Geo. Now, for some unknown reason, this area where you have all these blocks floating at you reminds me of the third boss from Blaster Master, where it's just these bunch of blocks that do all kinds of different shooting and just float right at you. Because when I first saw this, I was like, wow, those kind of remind me of those crazy blocks from Blaster Master that drove me crazy the first few times that I fought them. And it looks like the blocks stop for a little while, and then they continue on once again, because, it always is really hard when parts of the level start trying to kill you. Oh, and here's some really hyper-looking shooting, but of course I get killed. More floating treasure chests. And of course, the only real update, except for the stuff that I mentioned in the differences of Midnight Wanderers, the only real update in the American version of the game is that you have the winners don't use drugs propaganda, which is thrown in the American version because they gotta let us know that if you want to be a winner at video games, you can't do drugs. Okay, let's continue on here. And that's another cool thing about this. Just like a lot of the shooters in this genre, when you get killed, a lot of the power-ups that you have will actually come out of you, and then you can power yourself back up a little bit. So you won't be so bad like in some games where you die and you have no power-ups, you have the default shooting, and it's almost impossible to get any further. Pretty cool. They're actually moons that when you shoot them, it actually looks like they're getting smaller. Like they'll first be a half moon, then there'll be a small crescent, and then they'll finally die. So that's a kind of cool concept for an enemy. And of course we're in space here with the stars in the background, so that's perfect for moons. Too bad there's no blue moon, like the song. Let's just take care of all these moons. Try not to die much. And let's get all our power-ups back once again. This was almost released in mid-year of May, mid-year of 1991. It was released in May of 91. And here's our next boss, which is this crazy machine moon. It looks like it's like a moon that's like a machine. And no matter what I do at this boss, I cannot get past the lasers that shoot from the top and bottom, because they're just almost impossible to not get hit by. The wide shot helps a lot. Of course, it'll remind just about everyone of the game Contra, because that's the game that basically made the wide shot a household thing. I know somebody out there probably right now saying, ooh, but this game had it before Contra. But sure, some other game might have had it before Contra, but Contra made a spreader or a wide shot a really common thing in just about every shooter ever made. See if I can actually save everyone from the crazy moon creature here without getting killed too many hundred more times. But basically, that's basically Chariot here, an adventure through the sky. It's an enjoyable shooter if you're into this genre. As I mentioned earlier, it's not really my thing, but it really can be fun if you enjoy these types of shooters. It's a little bit different because it has more of a whimsical setting as opposed to other games. And it's definitely worth your time, especially if you're into the genre or stuff that's just a little bit more light and less serious as compared to other shooters. Well, this has been another Game Nexus Mame review, and I shall see you next time when we look at the final game of this series, which is called Don't Pull, the weird little puzzle game. And I shall see you later.